And we are holding this in the Village Hall as well as on the Zoom. Zoom link is at the top of the agenda. And we have a quorum, and the agenda was properly posted. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excuse me. Next, then we have public appearances. This is public's opportunity to speak on any subject. If you are from the public, we just ask you to share your name, your address, your municipality, and hold your comments to no more than 3 minutes in case we have a lot of folks who would like to speak. With that, we have a couple wish to speak forms that were submitted, and we'll start off with Tina McFadden. Tina? Either one's fine, whatever you want. Okay. Just have to press the little button with the little, it looks like a, yes.
Hi, my name is Tina McFadden. I live at 100 Heather Drive, and I'm here to speak about the lift station. I'm against the putting in a new lift station at this time. I think we should fix the one that we have. That's a lot of money to be spending. It's like, what, $6.8 million, $7 million to put in a new lift station, and especially when there isn't development going in 100%, and a development may not go in for another 5-10 years, something like that. So and then for that to happen, for development to happen, there needs to be another access to BBs. So there's just a lot of logistics that need to be considered there. But for the time being, I think we should fix the existing one. So thank you.
Thanks, Tina. We also have a wish to speak from Abby McDowell. Abby?
Hi, good evening. My name is Abby McDowell. I'm the homeowner at 208 Heather Drive. On the agenda tonight, you are going to review a staff report from the Public Works Department recommending the move forward with the new Ridge Lift Station, a proposed expenditure of $6.8 million, rather than spending the $750,000 on future upgrades to the existing Trillium Lift Station. It seems financially irresponsible to commit such a large sum to a project intended for a future village development that has yet to be approved. I reviewed the updated lift station plans, and while I appreciate the addition of berms and landscaping buffers, I raised concerns about who will maintain these areas. Currently, the residents of Heather Drive are responsible for mowing and taking care of the easement. Will the Public Works Department be taking over this responsibility? Recently, a vendor was hired by the department to drill for soil samples, leaving tire marks and damaged grass throughout the easement, not only on my property, but on my neighbors as well. Will this be addressed and fixed in the springtime? We take pride in our lawns and our landscaping, and it's disappointing to see this damage. Additionally, I want to address the scale of the proposed development that's going into the Arrowwood neighborhood. When comparing it to the Grandview Commons neighborhood near the Metro Market on Cottage Grove Road, the new development will be similar in size and design. However, there is a significant difference in terms of access points. Grandview Commons is served by 3 major roadways: Milwaukee Street, Sprecher Road, and Cottage Grove Road, while the proposed development will only have access through the Weldbridge Highway N and Taylor Street intersection. How will this intersection handle the traffic from a development of this size? The addition of 491 homes is expected to bring around 1,000 more vehicles to Taylor Street, likely causing major congestion at the Weldbridge Highway N and Taylor Street intersection. Starting the construction of a new lift station before the proposed development or a secondary access road is approved seems budgetarily reckless. I urge you to table this project until the development is officially approved, the intersection problem solved, or a secondary access road to Highway BB is added. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. Anyone else in the room or on Zoom wish to speak? Just need to push the button. It looks like a person speaking. There you
Hi,
go.
my name's Sue Martin. I live on 27 Heather Drive, and I'm just concerned about the development's a whole different issue, but doing the lift station before you even have anything approved to make a development seems kind of backwards. And I also have some concerns about the lift station itself. Like, do we know who will be constructing this lift station, and how much input will we take from a possible developer if they are committed to paying for part of it? Will they dictate how much we get to spend on the lift station? I feel like we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. I think we should just slow it down a little bit, resolve the development issues, and then I guess I don't know if the current lift station is on like its last leg, if we can get some more time out of it as we try and figure out what's the best way going forward, rather than spending a lot of money on something that we may or may not need in the near future versus more distant future. Thanks.
Thank you, Sue. Okay. Anyone else in the room or on Zoom? All right. Then we'll move to discuss and consider the meeting minutes from a regular board meeting held on December 16th. Any questions, comments in regards to the meeting minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Then we move on to unfinished business. First up is discuss and consider modifying Class A license, alcohol license for Six Toes LLC, or Cottage Grove store licensing year from 2024 of July to June 2025. You see what I know everybody saw in the packet, but
Sure. So there is a memo in the packet. Basically, they had reached out after you did the approval of the license at the last meeting, stating that the reorganization wasn't ready for January 1st. And so they're asking if we can, if they can operate under their current license, which is the Cenex store, and then they would notify us when they are ready for that reorganization to happen, and then we could issue that license. Is that correct, Larry? Am I speaking correctly?
Yeah, it's just a little tweak to allow the transfer when they're ready.
any questions regarding this from the board?
I'll move that we modify the Class A alcohol license for Six Toes LLC DBA Cottage Grove Store for licensing year July 2024 through June 2025 as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next then is just an update on the library project referendum question. Is this you, Larry, or someone else? Or Matt? I know.
There's a memo in the packet from Cameron, just kind of outlining where things are at as far as we have a draft of a question in for review by the Department of Revenue. Ultimately, we want to make sure if the board's, prior to the board considering a question, that it's acceptable to the DOR. The deadline to submit that is January 21st, and we have a special meeting next week to consider that. Also, prior to considering that, we'll have a comprehensive look at the village's financials that will show what our financial model looks like with both a hypothetical yes and a no. So the board can consider that ahead of a question.
Matt covered it. I got nothing else to add.
Thanks, Cameron. Thanks, Matt. Any questions for either of them? All right. We'll then move on to discuss and consider the application for the Village of Cottage Grove for the approval of a site plan for a new village lift station located in portions of two parcels listed on West Ridge Road, 0107, they're in the agenda, but 0711-103, 9001-1 and 0711-1528501-1.
I'll go ahead and start. I'm at an awkward spot, so sorry for those of you on this side of the table. As of in December, the Plan Commission brought forward the rezoning of the lift station parcel. The rezoning was passed as well as the CSM at the last lift station meeting. Josh Straka, the village engineer from Strand, as well as I kind of gave a background of the lift station and kind of what that site looks like. What we are approving today is the site layout plan, not the overarching development and the overarching lift station itself. One thing to note is the Utility Commission is very cognizant of the lift station in general and its cost. They have discussed many of times, and it's kind of listed in your memo, that the purpose of the lift station, when we brought it to the Utility Commission, was to do for planning purposes. The whole east side of the village cannot be served by the Trillium lift station without a future lift station, which is where this Ridge lift station comes into place. There's about 320 acres on the east side of the village that cannot be served by Trillium and without the Ridge lift station. With that being said, the Utility Commission is an agreement with the village board and overarching. They would not move forward with a $7 million lift station without a developer's agreement or some other kind of agreement that this development is going to move forward because of the funding of it. You can listen to past Utility Commission meetings, and they've made that very clear that they would like a development agreement signed and executed to all of our standards before the lift station contract would be awarded. So as part of this project, it is looking at just the site plan because as it sits right now, we cannot move forward with the project as it sits. We can go out to bidding, but our bidding schedule for the project would always correlate with the future movement of any development. If a development doesn't continue to move forward, the Ridge lift station at this time would not be moving forward as well. So included in your packet is kind of a memo of that aspect, as well as looking at two different site plans. And I can share my screen here so you can see them on the board. The first site plan, when it shows up, is the original site plan that was discussed and brought forward to Plan Commission as well as Village Board in December. One thing that Plan Commission did recommend was to add additional landscaping to this east side on the property line to provide additional screenings between the lift station and the adjacent properties. Within this, you can kind of see the village engineer Strand put together a sound exhibit for us and indicated what the fans look like, what the generator, what those, that sound leaving the building, as well as what it looks like at the property line. One thing to note is this lift station is intended to have actuation within the building itself, so the building blocks will be an additional sound barrier. The Vilas lift station, I know that was brought up previously, does not have that aspect associated with the building. So this is the original site layout. It includes the building, a wraparound to be able to go around the building for staff to be able to function with an ease, as well as the necessary stormwater basin. I wonder if I shared the right. And then the second site layout plan after the December meeting, it was discussed looking at a berm and additional landscaping options. This provides an additional 6-foot berm with trees. It does not allow staff to operate all the way around the building. It shifts the building and the entire property to the east to the extent it's possible because of these wetlands. And with that, an additional land would have to be purchased. And that cost would be around, I think, $15,000 is what I put in from the original plan that we were trying to limit the space that we would purchase. When looking at the sound exhibit and the decibels of what that looks like at the property line between the two site alternatives layouts, you're looking at about 5 decibels, which when you zoom in, 5 decibels is 10 is talking. So you're talking about not a whole lot of sound decibels at that property line. Are there any questions for me?
I have a couple from the public. So with the lift station, who would maintain it?
Public Works staff maintains all of our lift stations. We mow, we have our forester look at the trees, we maintain all of our village properties.
Okay, actually, that's my only question. So
Mhm.
You had a question. The recommendation was to approve the original site plan.
Yep.
Because of various issues with this site plan.
Mhm.
Obviously, the new site plan addressed some of the villages or some of the community input,
Mhm.
but you made there's some comments in here about can't do snow removal or backup noises. I look at that layout and it didn't really jump out at me as why that's the case.
So with snow removal operations, when you push snow, eventually you have to back up. And same thing with any of our larger vehicles, our loader. You can't, with the second alternative, there is not an option to circle the entire lift station. So once you get to the back here, I don't know if you can see my screen, the top right-hand corner, you then have to use either A, try to maneuver and turn radius your car or the trucks or vehicles that we are operating, or use the backup. And those larger vehicles do have a backup noise. So that was what was intended for the snow operation removal and other operationals.
Got it. So then the other question I had was you said something about the existing Trillium lift station cannot service the east side of the community.
Correct.
That's based on growth. The existing homes that are being serviced by Trillium, Trillium has the capacity to service that.
Correct. Trillium has the capacity to serve the existing service area.
Yeah.
But as you continue to grow east, it's not deep enough and it cannot, by gravity, continue servicing the eastern portion of the village past where it is servicing now.
But it's adequate for what we've got in place right now.
Correct.
So then I look at the cost. So I'm not quite clear on exactly what the upgrades are, SCADA upgrades, how critical that is to operations. I know the generator is an issue. It's really not mapped out as the alternative considered. If you assume there is no growth in the next 5 years, this is a complete waste of money. That's kind of my take. If we are going to spend $6.8 million, the debt service on that's going to be like $250,000 to $300,000 a year. So if we did these upgrades for $250,000, we could buy a year for free, in essence, in terms of the debt cost, right? So I guess I'm not quite clear as to why we need to move forward with approving a site plan and continuing down this path when we don't have a developer agreement, we don't have anything in place that would suggest we're going to do something in the next 1 to 2 years.
So with that is kind of where I circle back to the Utility Commission. We can't move forward with a project without Village Board's approval for anything for this project. Right now, the Utility Commission has made it known that we are still moving forward to a point where we would bid if the developer is still moving forward. We've had holidays, everyone's been on and off. We do not have an update where Lakewood is at. We would not bid and we would not award the project if there is not any developer that is interested in that land. Long-term future growth, we are going to need a lift station. So for the reason of that in the long term, we are going to need a lift station. We are putting these plans on the shelf. So once a developer is interested, we can move forward full force and not have to go through all of the hoops again.
So if a development didn't happen for 5 years, I mean, that neighborhood's been basically in the same condition it is for the last 15 years.
Yep.
Right? So you say we need this, well, it might be 15 years, right? So when you look at the cost to upgrade the existing Trillium lift station, it's a pretty minor investment as it relates to the alternative considered, right?
I guess I'm going to just speak to that because it depends on what your time horizon is. So you're either sticking about $800,000 for 10 years or you're moving forward with when we broke out the pieces between what the developer would be responsible for and what the existing users would be for, it would be about $1 million would be attributed for the user base and everything else would be taken care of with development for 40 years as opposed to spending 700 to 800,000 for 10 years. So that's why when staff were evaluating this with Utility Commission and the engineers, eventually, not saying if the development would move forward, if it wouldn't move forward tomorrow, we wouldn't do it. But as we get 5 years, 6 years out, this is definitely something that needs to be planned for, and it likely makes more sense to spend the money in the new lift station as it would be to rehab and put the money back into Ridge Lift Station.
That, again, is based on a number of assumptions, right? If the assumption is there's going to be a development in the next 3 to 5 years, yes. If not, we're saying the Trillium Lift Station needs some investment to continue to operate for the neighborhood, and it's a significantly lower investment. So to me, it's premature to be teeing up a $6.8 million project. If Trillium has 3 years before we need to do something, and I know the generator is an issue right now, if there's an extended outage on that power to Trillium, we're gonna have a problem in that neighborhood. So the community in the area really, at this point, has an urgent need to make sure that they don't have their basements backing up with sewage, right?
Yes, we do have a portable generator that is operable, but in the case of the entire village going down with power, we're pulled in multiple different directions. But yes, we do need a generator at that lift station
So
eventually.
how long would it take to mobilize to get the generator wired up, operational for Trillium if there was a power outage that extended for hours?
I mean, we have staff that can get here in under an hour.
Okay.
I guess I would just say, this isn't a major issue either way.
Yep.
I mean, if we want to wait to approve a site plan when it's closer to a developer being ready, I mean, it's really not a major issue. It's not a money thing as much as a planning thing and a transparency thing, where this is where, I mean, the village has planned and directed staff that there's at least 320 acres of planned neighborhoods that can't be serviced. So that's why we're working with the utility for where this should go whenever it's needed. So that's what we're working towards. But the overall economic impact of the housing that could, put aside the utility ratepayers and what developers would pay, this housing development and subsequent housing developments from this 320 acres would bring about $500 million of tax base to the village. So it opens up that opportunity for developers, and we're essentially running out of, we have basically nothing going on for single family housing in the village. So it makes sense, and our plans suggest to do this. So the tax revenue for just the village alone would be $3.5 million, and $7.5 million for Monona Grove School District.
Can I ask a couple of questions? With it being the utilities, I know the Utility Commission has their own role that they play that we don't play when it comes to their money. We don't approve, right, all of those things. So can you briefly, somebody speak to what the decisions are that the utility makes without us? I'd just be curious to understand.
I can start, and then Larry, you can fill in. They can pretty much decide everything except if they need the board to approve general obligation debt. There's probably a couple other examples, but for the most part, they're and water is regulated by the Public Service Commission, but otherwise the utility is a separate entity. However, for something like this, I mean, the board ultimately has approval of something like a site plan like this, or the development itself would be approved by the board. The Utility Commission has identified they wouldn't move forward without an approved development agreement. The board would have final approval of that. The board appoints the members, so if you guys want to send a message to there's ways to, you guys have a lot of control, but ultimately they have, most of the day-to-day and policy decisions.
They would decide whether to spend the money on this station. Again, as Matt said, depending on where the money comes from, or if there was going to be general obligation borrowing, that would require the village board to act. This is just a site plan. This is not approval of a lift station. I think of this site plan as if somebody in a private business comes and says, this is what I want to do on this location. That's the village board's role.
So Larry, that leads me to my next question, maybe before you keep going. Generally, when we approve site plans, we are approving it based on, does it meet the, what do we call the comprehensive plan? Does it meet the zoning requirements? We're not approving a site plan if we like it or don't like it, right? I mean, we have, our decision, what we can use to make our decisions is fairly narrow in that we can say no if it doesn't meet our zoning requirements. We can't, I'm asking because I'm wondering, my understanding is we can't just say no because we don't want it.
I think it's a little different here because I don't know that there's very bright lines on what you're required to do, because this is a village request of the village itself, right? It's a sort of, we're applying to ourselves, if you will, for this. And so, you know, I think that it's hard for me to, it's hard for me to give a clear answer on what, I guess a no would just be, let's reconsider whether we do it at this time. I think that's okay, as Matt said, if that's what you wanted to do. But it's something that, you know, I wanted to add to Peter's comments. This is, you know, if the development doesn't occur in 3 to 5 years, it's very likely that the Utilities Commission would look to upgrade Trillium, right? Or figure out how to fund another lift station, because you can't do, nothing is not an option. The idea is that if this development does happen in relatively soon, that it saves everybody money. Definitely saves everybody money long run if you do it all in one instead of two. But there is a certain period of time after which, if the development doesn't occur, if we have a downturn in the economy or something like that, when they'll have to look at upgrades to Trillium or some other option.
I think to your point, and why the Utility Commission exists, we're looking at one piece of a lot of infrastructure that goes into the utility. So similar to what we do in the FMP process, we don't want to stack $10, $20 million worth of projects in any given year. So as we were planning this and laying out other infrastructure, you know, well 5 is not too far down the road. We wouldn't want to do Ridge Lift Station the same year we would do well 5, similar with other loop projects that we're doing. So this is a very small piece of the overall water and sewer plan. And so what you'll see on Monday is bringing the water and sewer kind of projects into the FMP. So this board can at least get some oversight of what is all kind of coming up on the horizon to help kind of with those decisions. Because again, we're only looking at one piece of infrastructure in the sewer utility. And both the water and sewer utility are extremely heavy on the infrastructure side. And a lot of dollars are spent maintaining and upgrading various lift stations, wells, repairs. So
And we make sure when a development's coming in that they're paying not just their fair share, I mean, their full freight of the impact to the system. So that's what we're figuring out, you know, as we work through this with Lakewood or any other developer that would come forward.
Yeah, Larry, you made the comment that this would save money for everybody in the long run. I think that's based on the assumption a development occurs, right? There is a chance a development doesn't occur. And if it doesn't, then building a lift station would be a complete waste of money versus investing $1 million in Trillium, right?
But I don't get, what I understand is we're not going to do that. If the development doesn't occur, there won't be a lift station constructed. At least not in this, you know, as it's being planned for right now.
For purposes tonight, what I think I heard from Matt and Kyla is that it isn't mission critical that we approve a site plan tonight, that if we don't, then it will come back to this board when there is a development that needs to move forward. Is that accurate?
Yes, at the same time, it's much easier and more efficient for us when we're meeting with developers to just, they come in and meet with us and we show them, here's where this is gonna be, here's the capacity, here's how much it's gonna cost. And it's more transparent to the residents out there. The only way that this would change is if the board is like, I don't know why we're talking about 1,000 new homes eventually over 20, 30 years in the village. We're done growing. We don't want any more single-family housing.
And-
But that's the other extreme, and I don't think I'm hearing that either, so.
Right, and does it make sense then in that case to put a condition on the motion that the lift station, the site plan be approved only if there is sign development? I feel like we've not really put that condition on a site plan approval. Have we, or can that be in the motion?
I mean,
Just so that we
a site
can
plan approval
actually,
doesn't authorize,
That's what I thought.
authorize building a lift station.
right,
It just identifies the site and the conditions of the building setbacks and landscaping and.
But it paves the way for building the lift station without the conditions that I think the residents of Cottage Grove need. And that is, building this lift station is not going to impact my utility rates or anybody else's from today versus future state. And that the future state costs, all the incremental future state costs, will be borne by the developer or the incremental development that occurs, the homes that actually get built, right? And without that condition, it seems premature. I mean, I think like Sarah said, I mean, if this isn't mission critical, I don't think we know enough about those developments. There's concerns about access, and I think that's a really valid concern that has to be vetted out. There are a lot of concerns about a development that actually could be put in that would actually need this. I think conceptually, we've got a location, we've got a potential solution as far as where the grade is, where the elevation is, where the drainage would be. This is where it would be, right? So I don't know how much further we need to go until we've got a developer or a plan that actually makes sense. Because what I've seen so far in terms of the site plans don't make sense.
Well, the thing I would add to that is, I don't think that a site plan for a lift station is the decision-making on a site plan for a lift station is the mechanism to address the issues that. It's the neighborhood, it's the plat, it's the layout of the streets, it's there was one suggestion in an email we all received today that, and I heard a comment today that, people would like to see access up to to Cottage Grove Road out of this new development instead of funneling. Those things have nothing, the site plan approval for a, no.
They have everything to do with
No, they
whether or
don't.
not the development that justifies this investment or this.
The investment doesn't occur without
But the
development.
linkage that Sarah had said we can't build in, so the linkage you're talking about doesn't exist other than in conversation. Oh, I'm sorry.
We can probably pick up each other on it.
Okay.
I guess, so to Larry's point, the developer would have to go through a preliminary plat, a final plat, or a plan unit development process, which is a two-stage process. And then even after that, we would need an approved development agreement. These are gonna have a laundry list of conditions that are gonna be way more stringent than anything we'd put on a site plan.
And that was my point, Peter, and to Sarah's question. I don't know that I can tell you have to allow a site plan if it meets the zoning code. I guess here it's a little different because we're also the applicant technically. But all of the things that we've heard as concerns that aren't related to this particular lift station and its effects immediately in terms of its operations, it's my role to tell you how this all fits together, and there will be, if there's a development, there will be significant input, and it'll be all this board that makes those decisions and not the utility commission. If I'm understanding you correctly, Peter, you're saying, but if we approve the site plan, the utilities commission could build this, and
Revenue bonds.
you don't want to see that done
Could happen.
until there's development sufficient to cover it. Yeah.
So I guess-
But Peter, the utility is fiduciary to the utility, and that would be what would be the gain for them to build a lift station that they can't pay back?
Revenue bonds.
Well, we couldn't even issue the
No.
revenue bonds, so we wouldn't have the revenue.
Yeah.
We would need the developer's agreement.
So I guess to give a little context to what Larry's saying about the options you have, the ordinance specifies two ways of dealing with the site plan. You can either approve it with conditions or tell the applicant to make changes and bring it back. But in a case where you have a cooperative applicant who's willing to let it be tabled and not push the issue, then you'd be okay tabling it. And I think I would go that route as opposed to trying to approve it with, all these different conditions hinging on this neighborhood that hasn't even been submitted yet.
So then the motion potentially could be to table. If that's
Yeah.
that's the way around this without officially denying it, not approving it. Okay.
That seems the cleanest to me. I don't know if Larry has a different opinion. Yeah.
But there is something that we know for certain. If a development were to go here, we would have to figure out a way to serve their utilities. And if we continue on like a piecemeal viewpoint on every single development all over, we're creating so much more work, so much more inefficiency in the system, and inefficiency in our staffing, that it'll cost us more over the long run. And not that we should go ahead and build it tomorrow without any development, but we do have some certainties in this. Just having a lift station doesn't mean that there won't be a road connection somewhere, or there won't be traffic mitigated, or there won't be, there's a bunch of other, conditions or changes or whatever development ends up potentially coming forward to meet our comprehensive plan. But we do know that they would need to be serviced by a utility. So that is the one certainty that, we could at least start off with. This is what makes the most sense for us moving forward in the 30, 40-year long run for our utility. So that's why I think it's better for our certainty to get what we want now. That makes the most sense in the long run. But I mean, I'm not opposed to waiting until later too, but I would mostly support,
Yeah, and that's
getting
why it's in front
certainty.
of you right now, because the planning function, the staffing on this, and the relationship between utility commission and village board is exactly that. Let's knock this out, move on, if that's the only reason why it's here.
So one thing to add on to that is a lift station and the equipment with inside of it and the process to actually construct it. There's like a year lead time for some things. So by having a plan set and having a site plan and having everything almost to the approvals are completed, where the engineers can go out and bid this project and we can go through the contracting, that right there takes a couple months. And then you have the building of the lift station. So when a developer does want to come, developers, once their developer agreement is signed, they like to move pretty quickly as well. Then we can move concurrently with them. We don't want to be sitting 2 months behind or 5-6 months behind a developer, because then their infrastructure isn't going to be able, we're not going to be any use to them because they're not going to be able to be serviced. So that's the other thing of having these plans ready for the planning purpose.
I mean, I think the plans are fairly set right now, and I'm fine with tabling it.
Does tabling need to be a specific motion?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make a motion that this be tabled.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and second then to table. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right. Moving on then to new business, discuss and consider rescheduling or canceling our January 20th board meeting. As everybody knows, we're going to be next week as well. So that's been the items.
And Martin Luther King Jr. Day is an official village holiday. So we're not aware of anything notable that would need to be handled during that week. But we could, if you wanted to reschedule, a logical day would just be the next day, so that Tuesday. But also with the special meeting, we don't necessarily have to meet 3 times this month, so canceling is fine as well. But I'll be here if you want us here. We'll be here if you need us.
Make a motion to cancel the January 20th, 2025 board meeting.
Second, loudly.
And a broken computer. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Moving then to reports from village boards, commissions, and committees, starting off with the library board. Cindy?
Yep, so the library board met on Wednesday, December 18th at 6 o'clock. We approved our minutes, we updated our mission and vision statements and our programming mission statements. We approved an MOU contract with McFarland for the first half of 2025. We approved our vouchers. And then we had our annual proposed library programming workshop where we just kind of give our staff member a direction for the first half / actually the entire year of kind of the goals and making sure that it aligns with our mission, vision, and core values. And that's took up kind of the rest of the time. Our next meeting is January 15th at 6 o'clock.
All right. Thanks, Cindy. Next then we have Deer Grove EMS. Peter or Cindy? And I see Chief was on earlier, but I see he's on too as well.
We met on Thursday, December 19th at 6:30. We approved the minutes from the prior meeting. We approved the November financial reports. Call volume is on pace for 155 calls, which is the highest monthly call ever, which is kind of what we were anticipating. We're up to about 1 call a week from the urgent care for transport, Stoughton Urgent Care, which is going up. There was a discussion that based on current trends within the next 5 years, there may be a need for a third ambulance. That'll have to be evaluated. Right now, we don't have a bay or sleeping space at the current station, so that's going to provide a little bit of a challenge. Chief gave us an update on hiring and recruitment. There were 2 offers made at the time, and the plan was to have one start on January 6th and the other on February 3rd. There has been some staffing changes, and I don't know, Chief, if you've got a quick update, but I think right now you're going to have 3 of the 4 positions staffed now February 3rd, and you're looking to extend an offer for a 4th, correct?
Three accepted offers, with a 3rd accepted offer being made today, and still working to figure out where that person can start, hopefully sometime before February 3rd, but for sure 2 people starting February 3rd. And it looks like we've got the schedule pretty well filled in with our casual staffing group between now and then.
Staffing is always a challenge. Thank you, Chief. Then Chief also shared a thank you letter from the City of Madison Fire Department for helping with the reunification efforts during the Abundant Life incident that occurred last week. And Deer Grove was dispatched, obviously, to assist. And then we closed the meeting. That was it.
All right. Thanks, Pete. Anything from you, Chief? Anything else you want to? As long as you're on.
I'm pretty sure we finished the month right at about that 155 mark, waiting for the official statistics today. We should be in the low 1400s for call volume for the year, which is about 100 over last year.
All right. Thanks, Chief. If there's nothing else on Deer Grove, then we'll move on to reports from village officers, starting with the village attorney. Larry, anything? You got
Nothing additional today.
You got a couple things yet on the agenda.
I think Larry may be deferring till Rick is here at one of the upcoming meetings. Maybe. He wrote an article about one of those topics in the municipality.
So we'll put that on for the next go around when Rick's here. It was a good article, by the way. All right, then we'll move on to communications and miscellaneous business, starting off with consideration of the vouchers. Any questions, comments in regards to the vouchers as presented?
Go ahead.
Oh, I had a question. There was a $125,000 charge at Lannis Valley Foods. There was an MRO payment. What was that?
It's a TID incentive.
That was a TID incentive?
Yep, so so in that agreement, they generate tax revenue and there's a set period of recapture based off of some infrastructure improvements that were required by the village at the time.
So this was a payment to them for
Yep.
those? Okay.
MRO is a municipal revenue obligation.
It's one of those pay-as-you-goes.
Yeah, basically they had a assessment guarantee that they've hit, and then we recover a certain amount of revenue, and then they're repaid an amount.
I'll move approval of the vouchers as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Correspondence, I didn't have anything. I don't know if anybody else did.
I didn't have anything, but I just want to remind everybody to register their pets. It's the new year.
Licensing.
License, sorry.
Yes.
Not all their pets, though.
No,
just the dogs.
It's dogs, okay. Everybody, license your dogs.
It's a pretty little red one this year coming up, instead of the green one, so. I bought 2 of them. Anything else? All right, then upcoming community events. I think it's just to stay warm, I believe, but I'll open it up to anybody else that wants to say anything.
Our special meeting next week, which is not on our usual schedule, but special meeting for anyone else that is interested in attending, just an extra shout out. Is it at 5:30 or 6:30?
6:30.
6:30.
Thank you, Heidi. Anything from anybody else? Future agenda items, future meeting next week. Matt, you want to hit anything or no?
For February 17th, I've invited Olivia Perry, thank you, the senior planner from Dane County, to talk about missing middle. So,
Thank you, Lori. All right, then we'll move on to item 11.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Non-debatable, all those in favor? Aye. All right, everybody have a good week.